Good morning. I'm Stephanie Benvenuto, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. It is 9:02 on May 31st, and I'm calling to order the special meeting of the board. The process we're using for today's meeting is authorized by Government Code Section 54953E, which was added by Assembly Bill 361. This allows the Housing Commission to use teleconferencing and provide the public with an opportunity to address the board through a call-in or internet-based option during a proclaimed state of emergency. And the San Diego City Council on May 24th, 2022 declared that a state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. The council also declared that this applies to all boards, commissions, and committees of the city of San Diego. This meeting is occurring by video conference with all board members, our interim president and CEO, Housing Commission staff, and general counsel participating by video. For the record, I'll ask each board member to indicate their presence as I say their name. Vice Chair Ryan Klumpner.
Here.
Commissioner Keeley Hubbard.
Present.
Commissioner Mitch Mitchell.
Hester.
Well, you know, in fairness, there was a typo. So this is, and I'm throwing staff right under the bus because this is usually my epic screw up. So I'm going to go back to my written note. Commissioner Hester, are you present?
I think so. I try to be.
Good morning, and I apologize. Commissioner Melinda Vasquez.
Here.
Okay. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch the video conference and hear the audio of today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The agenda for today's meeting included a link to the website for the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. The public has been provided with an alternate opportunity to provide comments to the board through an online comment form and a toll-free phone number. A link to the online comment form was included on the agenda for today's meeting, which was posted on the San Diego Housing Commission's website, www.sdhc.org, on Friday, May 27th. The agenda and the public comment form explain that comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they were submitted by 4 p.m. yesterday, Monday, May 30th. Non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 o'clock this morning will be read into the record. In addition, members of the public who wish to speak on an item may call the toll-free phone number that is included on the agenda. Members of the public should monitor the meeting through the live video streaming available through the Housing Commission's website, www.sdhc.org. Again, today's agenda included a link to the website for this board where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. Members of the public should call the toll-free phone number only when the item they wish to comment on is introduced. If a caller begins to comment on an item that's different from the item currently being considered, we'll ask them to hang up and call back into the meeting at the appropriate time. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments, but if a large number of callers wish to speak on a single item, we may limit their time. And I see that Commissioner Mitchell has joined us, if we could add that for the record. The phone line is now open to provide non-agenda public comments. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue to provide non-agenda public comments. This is the time when members of the public may provide comments to the Housing Commission Board about topics that are not on today's agenda but involve a subject within the Housing Commission's area of responsibility. The Housing Commission cannot take action on non-agenda public comments. Again, that number is 833-610-2513. We had no written non-agenda public comments submitted for today's meeting, but I'll ask our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, if we have any callers now.
We do not have any callers at the moment. We have about 1 minute left on the clock.
Thank you.
That concludes the time, and we do not have any callers.
Thank you. Now we'll ask if any commissioners would like to make any comments. Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Sounds like you're holding your peace. So the Housing Commission Board will now convene in closed session. The phone line is now open for public comments about the closed session agenda, and you can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in that queue. We had no written public comments submitted for today's closed session. Again, that number is 833-610-2513. Mr. Christensen, will you please announce the closed session agenda for this morning?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. The San Diego Housing Commission will meet in closed session pursuant to the closed session agenda to discuss item Roman numeral 4A, which is conference with real property negotiators concerning the parcel listed in the closed session agenda. The issues under discussion or under negotiation are price and terms of payment. And as soon as the time for public comment is up, we will adjourn an open session and meet in closed session. After closed session is over, we'll come back and I will announce any actions taken by the board, if any.
Great, thank you. Do we have any callers at this time?
We do not have any callers. We have about 20 seconds left on the clock.
Thank you.
That concludes the time and there are no callers.
Great. This concludes the public comment period for closed session. After the closed session, the board will reconvene in open session and General Counsel Chuck Christensen will announce actions taken during the closed session. So I'll wait for Emmanuel to let us know that we are in the
What happened to the 5-minute break?
Well, I had to make the announcement. This is Stephanie Benvenuto, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. The board has concluded its closed session and is reconvening in open session at 10:12. Housing Commission General Counsel Chuck Christensen will now announce the actions the board took in closed session.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The Housing Commission met in closed session and there was no specific direction given to negotiators. That concludes the matters that were discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Chuck. And to give everybody time to log back in and coffee breaks and as such, we are going to take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene at 10:17. Thank you. agenda today. The PowerPoint presentation was emailed to commissioners in advance of today's meeting and is posted on the Housing Commission's website. And before we go ahead and do all of the meat of that, Scott, can you confirm for me that we are good in this new live Zoom, that it is streaming where it needs to stream and folks can access if they wanted to? We don't want to be in violation of anything that would screw us up later.
Yes, I'll ask Emmanuel Velasco, who's handling that, to confirm that for you.
Okay, excellent. Well, in the meantime, our single item today is item 100, the Mariners Cove Letter of Intent for Third Amendment and Restated Lease. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 100. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. A letter from AIR Communities on behalf of Lincoln Mariners Associated Limited was submitted to the board yesterday evening. It was submitted after the deadline for written comments to be read into the record. However, that letter was emailed to each of the commissioners last night and is posted on the public comment, is posted as public comments for this item on the Housing Commission's website. I hope everybody had a chance to read it. If not, maybe do so now. Again, for those who wish to provide public comments by phone this morning, the number to call is 833-610-2513. We'll take those public comments after the staff presentation, which is going to come to us from Executive Vice President of Real Estate, Emily Jacobs, who's going to be presenting. Emily, whenever you're ready.
Great. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. The item before you today is to seek direction and approval from the board regarding a non-binding letter of intent for a third amended and restated lease for Mariners Cove development in the Point Loma area. Mariners Cove is located at 4392 West Point Loma Boulevard in City Council District 2. The property is a little more than 30 acres. In December of 1982, the Housing Authority entered into a 55-year ground lease. The Housing Authority owns the land on which 500 units were constructed. The development consists of 100 rental units that are affordable for households with income up to 80% of San Diego's area median income, or AMI, which currently is $104,100 per year for a family of 4. An additional 200 rental units are affordable for households with incomes up to 120% of area median income, which is $128,300 per year for a family of 4. And 200 rental units are market rate. The lessee is Lincoln Mariners Associates Limited. The Housing Commission is the administrative agent for the Housing Authority. Therefore, the ground lease rents are made payable to the Housing Commission. As of 2021, the ground lease rent collected was $1,239,426 for the calendar year. Next slide. The red dot on the map of this slide shows the location of the Mariners Cove development. Next slide. In 2015, the Housing Authority approved a ground lease amendment that extended the lease through 2070 with 20-year option to renew, which would extend the lease through 2090. The lease provided for increases in the ground lease rent based on the Consumer Price Index beginning in January of 2022. The ground lease amendment also required the lessee, Lincoln Mariners Associate Limited, to expend $25 million by July 1 of 2021 to improve the development. That deadline was later extended to July 1 of 2022 after the lessee proposed a development concept for the property. The development proposal that the lessee submitted to the Housing Commission staff involves the demolition of the existing 500 housing units. The 500 units would then be reconstructed with an additional 272 new units for a total of 772 units on the property. It would not be reasonable to require the $25 million in improvements shortly before the planned demolition of the existing units through the proposed development. Housing Commission staff recommends presenting the development proposal to the Housing Authority for consideration. Next slide. To analyze the 772 unit proposal, the Housing Commission engaged Kaiser Marston Associates, and later in the negotiations, the lessee engaged London Motor Advisors for financial consultation. Both consultants performed several financial analyses. They determined that currently the project is marginally to not financially feasible. The lessee has indicated that they are optimistic the market will recover before construction begins. They are preparing the project for redevelopment. Based on the determination of the financial analysis that the project is not feasible at this time, the project should be closely monitored to ensure key development benchmarks such as environmental clearance and receipt of building permits, et cetera, are achieved. This includes more routine review of the ground lease rent structure. The Housing Commission and lessee have been negotiating deal points for a non-binding letter of intent, which are the subject of the item before you today. Next slide. The table on this slide provides a summary of the details of the existing lease term and how they would be revised under a third amended and restated lease if it were approved. The third amended and restated lease would be presented to this board and the Housing Authority for consideration at a later date. Next slide. Staff seeks direction from the Housing Commission Board and the Housing Authority on 12 potential provisions for the non-binding letter of intent. These items are listed on attachment 1 to the staff report and are shown on the next 5 slides. Direct staff to confirm that the Surplus Land Act does not apply to the proposed contingent amendment of the second amended and restated lease. Direct staff to submit the feasibility analysis prepared by both financial consultants with the proposed letter of intent to the City of San Diego's Office of the Independent Budget Analyst for review and recommendation. And direct staff to include terms in the letter of intent and third amended lease that require compliance with California State Senate Bill 330. Next slide. Direct staff to have feasibility analysis prepared to determine if compliance with SB 330 will make the proposed project infeasible. Direct staff to include an on-site inclusionary housing requirement of not less than 6 units of affordable housing at or below 60% of area median income, which is $78,060 per year for a family of 4. Direct staff to confirm that the housing assistance payment contract directly with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development will remain with the property. And direct staff to require a minimum investment of $350 million with the proposed project. Next slide. Direct staff to meet and negotiate with the lessee to finalize the letter of intent within 90 days after Housing Authority's approval of the recommendations. And direct staff to finalize a draft of the third amended and restated lease within 180 days after the Housing Authority approval of the letter of intent. The draft of the amended lease will be brought back to the Housing Authority on a later date for consideration after the environmental impact report for the proposed development has been completed. Next slide. The recommendation would require postponing the date for the expenditure of $25 million in improvements, which is required in the current lease. If the board directs staff to do so, the letter of intent and the amended lease would postpone this mandatory expenditure until after the Housing Authority has acted on the third and amended restated lease, but no later than July 1 of 2023. Next slide. Provide direction on staff's recommendation to review the ground lease rent structure every 10 years to ensure the property is paying fair market rent in accordance with the City Council Policy 700-10, which is attached to the staff report. And directing staff to include a disincentive holdover clause in the letter of intent and amended lease in accordance with the Office of the City Auditor's recommendation. The board has the option of voting on each of these 12 items individually in specified groupings or all together at one time. Next slide. In addition to the board's votes on these items for direction, staff also recommends that the board take the action shown on this slide, which is included in the staff report. Next slide. And staff requests that the board recommend that the Housing Authority take the action shown on this slide and detailed in the staff report. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions along with General Counsel Chuck Christensen and representatives from KMA. The developer is also present for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Scott, first, can you let us know if there's any callers?
We do not have any callers on this item.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions or comments. Would anybody like to speak? I don't see hand raised. Commissioner Vasquez, you're off mute. Would you like to speak? Nope, you're on mute. Now you're off.
Yes, I was just wondering, although I applaud having the additional 6 units, what the reason was for increasing the fair market value units, but not in the middle of a housing crisis, increasing 10% of the 272 units to be big or capital A affordable housing units.
The developer, when the developer applies and initiates the permit process, that is sort of the triggering event for the phase-in of their inclusionary requirement. So they came in at the 2% requirement and therefore are mandated to do the 6 units. Of course, we always want more, as you indicated, but they are doing what is required.
Okay, Commissioner Mitchell, you're off mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the staff report, Emily, and obviously looked at this project as a positive. You know, I will say this, you know, to the team, and I know this is complicated. We, as Commissioner Vasquez says, we are in the housing crisis. I will also say that one of the things we probably all need to think about, is a vernacular wise, is we have to stop saying affordable housing, workforce housing. Right. I mean, in the end, this is a really unaffordable market. So if we say affordable housing, it creates tension. People in neighborhoods think that we've all sat through those presentations where people go, well, they're building affordable housing in my neighborhood. It's workforce housing. This is housing for the people who live in San Diego or try to live in San Diego. And I think that all the deed restrictions and rent restrictions that we put on some of the projects are all fine. But I think in the end, this is a complicated project, but it's a necessary project. We've had a lot of time to look at this. And I appreciate all the work that's going into getting a deal done. I want to, make a suggestion. I want to recommend a motion for consideration, which is that we direct staff to go back and negotiate on the issue of the 2 remaining points. Madam Chair, I'd like to suggest that we have them go back and explore on the look back aspect of what the options are, and on the issue of the CPI payment, that I'm in favor of holding on to that. And I want to fashion it into a motion. I don't know if Chuck's on, but I want to give direction that those are the 2 things I'd like to see them focus on. And the last piece being that they do everything possible to ensure that the relocated residents, the residents who are going to be displaced, be provided with appropriate housing accommodations during the period of that displacement.
Chuck, did you want to provide a response to that?
I can take a shot at it. I think your motion would be move staff recommendations as referenced within the board report, with the exception of the issue of the CPI. And with respect to that, and I need clarification from Commissioner Mitchell, but is that a negotiate as well as on the other issue, the issue concerning Council Policy 700-10?
On the relocation?
Yeah.
I wanted something in the language that ensures that, proper relocation or proper an appropriate new premises for during the relocation are provided, right? What I don't want to do is wake up and hear that everybody's been relocated up to North County Inland, away from everything. So I just need something that attaches the staff to the monitoring of this discussion.
Understood. And with respect to the CPI issue, I was unclear on that.
I prefer to hold on to that to pursue what the staff is recommending.
Okay. So let me start again then. The motion would be move staff recommendations as set forth in the board report with the following exceptions. 1, for staff to ensure that appropriate relocation provisions are included within any, both in the LOI and also within the 3rd amended and restated lease. Secondly, to with respect to the issue of the 10-year revisiting of rent amounts for the staff to continue to negotiate with the lessee to see if it can come to a resolution. And with respect to the CPI issue, that staff recommendation concerning that be followed. I think that's your motion.
That is correct. And, just a little caveat, Madam Chair, is I do believe that when staffs go back to look at the look back, I'm flexible on that. I don't necessarily think it has to be 10 years, but I want staff to continue to pursue what they think is the most reasonable recommendation to get this project completed.
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. Would you be comfortable with a friendly amendment, just because I believe clarity at this point is really important? A friendly amendment, providing that flexibility, but with up 10 and upwards, not moving down.
I don't want to move down. I want to move up. I'm okay with moving up.
Okay, great. Then I'll second your motion. Is there any other discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to support the motion with the friendly amendment or with the amendment, because I am not in favor of increasing the amount of time for the look back period, just because of the way our market is. It increases greatly, and the only way to make sure that there isn't a windfall to the developer or the land to the landlord is to do the look back. And that's the only way to be compliant. So anything more than 10 years, I can't agree to.
And Madam Chair, I appreciate Commissioner Vasquez's clarity on that. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on this call that my main concern about the look back is that we need to have a conversation as a commission, as an organization, about how we're going to handle situations of this nature going forward. And so we can send clarity to everybody that is looking to develop properties in San Diego County. And I think we don't have that policy today. I do agree that with staff that we have to be looking at what fair market value is. And that needs to be what guides us. That needs to be the North Star that guides us in all these conversations is are we ensuring that we're getting fair market value? A and B, and I think everybody understands me, my perspective on this. We have a housing crisis. I want to provide more housing for everyone. And when I say everyone, for workforce housing, that's really my focus. Everyone that has a job and is trying to make ends meet. I do think that I'm very cautious when I hear comments about how much money someone's making. You look, we're in a period where the costs matter in San Diego County, and we should always be worried about how we're helping people handle the struggle. But I'm also not, I'm going to be clear, I'm not going to sit here and judge people in projects based on how much you're making. I leave that up to staff to make sure that we are indeed being compensated appropriately, meeting fair market value, and that we're providing as much housing as possible. So.
Muted myself. Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. Commissioner Klumpner, you're off mute. Would you like to add anything?
Just, I appreciate the work that everybody's put into this, the staff negotiating this. I know this is a very complex project. Also appreciate the developers that are here with us today, putting all this time and energy and re-envisioning what an investment in the site would look like, because I think the thing we can all certainly agree on is that $350 million investment that generates new affordable housing is superior to a $25 million investment that doesn't. And so all of these details aside, I certainly hope that we get to a resolution on that, and that those new units come online as quickly as possible. I'll also echo the concern about the residents on site, with the caveat that I do want to kind of give a chance for either staff or our members of the public here today who can speak to it to address that. But I think that we're all in agreement that it's very important to minimize the impact on those affected. And certainly this board has seen many projects in which relocation costs are simply paid out to people and they're sent on their way, and that's always the thing that we want to avoid. The most. We want the minimal disruption. So if either staff or anybody on the outside wants to comment on that, I do think that we're all in agreement on that being an important issue.
Yes,
I'm happy to comment on it.
I was just going to say that we wanted to give credit where credit is due. And in our negotiations with AIMCO, they have demonstrated a deep concern for the residents. So we will, of course, monitor that very carefully. But to AIMCO's credit, we have seen throughout our negotiations, they have a great deal of concern for the residents and their well-being. And if I may just speak to the motion, I'm a little unclear. If I'm understanding correctly, we are to go back and continue negotiations. Are we to come back to this board upon the end of negotiations, or can this move forward to the Housing Authority? If we could get some clarity on that, please.
I'm fine as long as you guys report to us before you send it to the Housing Authority so we can see what the terms are. That's fine.
Thank you. So I'm sorry. So my understanding is that
we'd like to know the final terms before they're transmitted to the Housing Authority. In a board meeting or in a communique? I think a communication is fine in my opinion.
Thank you.
And just this is Chuck Christensen. Just on logistics, in order to get this matter to the Housing Authority by June 28th, we have to docket it almost immediately for city attorney review. And so would it be all right to modify the motion to allow this to be docketed and at the same time to work with AIMCO on potentially resolving the matter so that we don't hold up this any longer?
Chuck, that's fine. That's fine. As a maker of the motion, that's fine for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. And I did see that Ms. Schwader I'm sorry if I just butchered your name, came off mute and just wanted to give her an opportunity to speak to that displacement piece.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, and you didn't butcher my name at all, so I appreciate that as well. Yes, we are very concerned and eager to help with the relocation process. This will be a phased development, so we anticipate taking down some of the buildings and moving residents to other units on site at our expense. It will be white glove movement, meaning that we pay for it, we pack them up, and then we move them back to these brand new units. So we have done this many, many times all around the country. As we like to say, we're in the business of keeping residents, not putting them out. And to the extent that the residents are happy, we're happy, and you're happy too. So we're happy to provide more details to the staff and you as you desire. Moving is not fun. Construction is not fun, but we're committed to make it the best experience that it can be given the situation.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion that has been amended and then clarified on the floor. It has a second. Is there any other discussion? Barring any of that, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. Okay. Vice Chair Klempner, are you off mute just in preparation, or are you going to speak?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
You tend to start with me.
I tend to, yes, that is the order. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Did Commissioner Hubbard join us again? Okay, I don't see her. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vasquez.
No.
Okay, that motion carries 5-1. Sorry, I had to count. That doesn't happen frequently.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, did you vote? Did you vote in favor?
Oh yes, I also vote in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, keeping us on. Okay. That concludes our single item. So that concludes our meeting for today. We will adjourn at 10:51. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.